So I'm going to watch this TikTok, which is the original one. Then I'm going to go back to watch the one that she did after this that I saw. And I'm going to explain why I've been debating on mentioning anything about this, because obviously Cleopatra is in Egypt. It's part of the African continent. It's not sub-Saharan Africa. It's more Middle Eastern than African in the way that you would look at the people and identify their ethnicity. It's far more Middle Eastern than it is sub-Saharan Africa. So there's controversy around the making of Cleopatra because they've decided to make Cleopatra a black woman, and they're demanding that she's a black woman. And I believe that this is the video where this woman explains why Jada Pinkett Smith producing this to be this way is incorrect and inaccurate. And to be quite honest, if you want to defend changing characters' races in like superhero movies and comic films and stuff, fine. There's a way to go about justifying that. I understand. But historical figures that are documented, that are discussed historically, that are like obviously didn't have videos and cameras, but we do have paintings, and none of them depict these historical figures as being black, that they're making black, right? So we're going to watch these and talk about it.
I don't care anymore. I swear, the entanglement never ends. What is this? I don't know if you can see the username up here.
Oh, it's a docuseries, not a movie. My mistake.
It's their strong black lead Twitter account. Queen Cleopatra follows a story of Cleopatra, one of the world's most famous and misunderstood women. Never mind the grammatical error, but clearly misunderstood. Cleopatra was not black, she was not brown, she was not any kind of earth tone. She was white. Very white, porcelain white. I don't want to hear about representation. This is not representation. Putting black faces on white bodies is not representation. Is this what you want to tell your black children? They can do anything as long as a white person did it first? Representation is showing things as they are. That means telling black stories. A movie I watched a couple weeks ago with Tiana Taylor, representation. The Cosby Show, The Fresh Prince, showing the black middle and upper class, representation. This isn't it.
Exactly. So there's that video, and then there's
Putting
this
black
one.
faces on white bodies is not representation.
Go back and watch her whole video, because I agree 100%, and it's time for me to jump on my soapbox for a second. I like Shonda Rhimes. Notice I said like and not love, but I will never forgive her for this. I will never forgive her for having y'all out here thinking that Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz was a black woman, or that she had black ancestry that would have been close enough to where she would have phenotypically looked like a black woman. I will never forgive her for that shit. Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz
It's in
was
Germany.
a whole-ass German white woman. She was white. Were there rumors during her lifetime that she may have been black? Yes, because she had lips and curly hair. That does not a black woman make. Any black ancestry that she may have had would have been so distant that it's not worth calling her a black woman. In fact, it's actually offensive to call her a black woman. Not when your 18th great-grandmama was black. Child, please. There were actual black queens that we could make movies about. But here we are.
Now, so this is why I decided I'm going to do this about Cleopatra, right? Okay, so it's so ridiculous. Queen Charlotte, let's make her black. Cleopatra, let's make her black. Now, Cleopatra depicted as a white woman all the time, discussed historically in documents as a Greek woman, a woman of Greek descent. Not sub-Saharan Africa, not black. And if you actually look at Egyptian history, the Egyptians do not describe themselves as black. They actually separate themselves from black Africa by discussing their southern neighbors, the Nubians, as being black as night. Okay? Now, here's why this bothers me. If Jada Pinkett Smith actually gave a single flying fuck about her culture from Africa, her ancestral culture, if that mattered to her, why would she take white historical figures and make them black? Why would she do this to Cleopatra? Well, because Cleopatra is a historical icon. She's known to be the most beautiful woman in history, etc., and so forth and so on. Here's the thing. The Queen of Sheba's heirs. This is the reason I've been debating on whether or not I wanted to say shit about it, so here we go. This book was written by Dr. Edith Lord in 1970. This is my great-grandmother. She went to Africa numerous times. She spent time in Ethiopia researching the Queen of Sheba and her heirs. Now, if you want to sit and say, okay, well, whatever, that woman probably didn't even know what she was talking about. Cambridge University, Ethiopian Culture, Cultural Patterns of Ethiopia, Queen of Sheba's Heirs, Edith Lord, once again, my great-grandmother, Washington Acropolis Books, 1970, $12.50. Here's the abstract if you want to read it. Like, you can even get it here. Apparently, if you can find a new version of it. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a new version of this book. And it'll cost you apparently $100 for a new version of it. Once again, there's not a new version. The only version I know of us having in the family belongs to my older brother, and we keep it in a Ziploc bag because it needs fixed. The spine's damaged. It's kind of falling apart as books do with time, and so it's in a Ziploc bag to kind of help protect it. So, like, they don't make this book anymore. And why aren't they going to make a movie about the Queen of Sheba that actually represents the Queen of Sheba? I don't know. But if you actually look up, we'll do it right now, the Queen of Sheba. Oh, look, it even just did my last search, which isn't what I wanted. And even when you do that, you don't find her book. Fuck it, we'll leave it right here. You don't find her book. We'll come into the images. Not her book, 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 not her book. All of these books are not the book that I'm looking for by my great-grandmother. These are all books that are fictitious and based on the lore and the stories. They're novels and fiction stories based around the folk tales told of the Queen of Sheba that go back for an incredibly long amount of time. I forget how long, so I'm not going to say exactly. The fact is, these depictions here of the Queen of Sheba are inaccurate, where they're making her more pale and more white. It's from Ethiopia. Okay? Eastern Africa, but very much so black. And if the part of the reason that I think that this is something that needs to be brought up is because I have done this myself, where I've taken like a taxi once in a while when I've gone somewhere on vacation or whatever, and talk to the driver, find out he's from Ethiopia. Sometimes just Uber or a Lyft from A to B. Talk to the guy in there, find out they're from somewhere in Africa. One or two from Ethiopia. And every time that this has happened, I've been like, look, I've never been and I don't know much about it. But my great-grandma was Edith Lord. And she wrote the book, The Queen of Sheba's Heirs. Now, more than once, I've actually had these guys refund me the money for my ride, or refuse to take payment or a tip for my ride, or if they couldn't do this, they offer to buy me food to compensate me for it, because the Queen of Sheba and her heirs was a lost piece of Ethiopian black history, of the royalty that they once had and the culture that they developed. It's lost. It's a lost piece of history. They cherish what my great-grandmother did in researching this, documenting it, publishing a book about it, and bringing to light that this existed and is a thing. It was a very real thing. Why don't we make a movie about that? instead of just race swapping white people to pretend to put black people on a pedestal as if they've never done anything good enough to have a pedestal of their own on equal terms. I just don't understand why this is where people take this shit every time. Like, if you actually want to know about the culture, go do a little bit of research. It's not that difficult. Why is it seemingly impossible for these people to do anything of this nature? Oh, you know what? We need more LGB representation in superheroes. Let's take Superman, an established character with a heterosexual romance, and make him bisexual. That only lasted 6 volumes until you had to cancel that, didn't it? Let's take Starfire, a known, established, beloved character from Teen Titans who is in a relationship with Robin and has a very specific figure and skin color as an alien from another planet. Let's make her black. Like, why? Why can't we just do things that exist and make those characters, hold them on the pedestal they deserve? Like, it's more insulting than just creating a character or respecting existing characters to pretend that we need to make characters that are already known, already beloved, already cherished into the race or gender or whatever demographic you want to slap on them, as if those people are somehow incapable and undeserving of that kind of respect or love of their own. It's amazing that this is the way people look at things. I'll never understand it. Oh, we can't possibly just think that black superheroes are any good. Fuck you. Static Shock was the shit, and you all suck for ignoring him.